She is 18 years old, and the government of her own state has just told her she is not welcome home. Let that sit for a second. A girl wins one of the most watched titles on the planet. Miss World, the year 2000. Cameras flash. Headlines scream her name across the country. And when she tries to go back to Bareilly, the small city where she grew up, to celebrate with the people who knew her before any of this, she's denied a homecoming. Local authorities call pageants exploitation of women. The Chief Minister's office cites security concerns and shuts the celebration down. 18 years old, the biggest win of her life, and the door homes is closed in her face. That girl was Priyanka Chopra. And what happened next is not the story most people tell about her. Most people talk about The Crown, the movies, the Grammy stage, the Hollywood premieres. What they don't talk about is the price. The years of being underestimated, dismissed, objectified, and told, in 100 different ways, that she didn't belong in the room she was standing in. This is that story. Not the highlight reel. The real one. Because here's the thing about success. The version we see is always the finished product. The red carpet, the magazine cover, the overnight sensation headline. Nobody puts the years of rejection on a magazine cover. Nobody frames the doubt. But if you actually want to understand how someone builds a life like hers, you have to go back to the moments that never made it into the highlight reel. You have to sit in the discomfort with her. So let's go back to the beginning, to a teenager who didn't even set out to be an actress. Priyanka's mother, Madhu Chopra, has told a story that says everything about who her daughter was before the world knew her name. She compared Priyanka to what's called a hit-me toy. You know the kind, you knock it down and it just comes back up every single time. That wasn't a metaphor invented for a highlight reel. That was a mother describing a child who had already learned, before fame ever touched her, that getting knocked down wasn't the end of anything. It was just part of the process. Because before The Crown, before the movies, there was already resistance. India is a country of over 1 billion people, and every year, thousands of young women compete for a handful of pageant titles that open doors most people will never even see. Priyanka won Femina Miss India World first. Then she went to London and won Miss World, becoming one of the youngest winners in the competition's history. And people assume that's where the story turns easy. It didn't. The rejection back home was the first sign of something Priyanka would face over and over in different forms for the next 2 decades, being celebrated by the world and questioned by the very institutions closest to her. And here's the part that matters. The part you can actually take with you. She didn't fight the rejection by arguing with it. She let her work answer it. Lara Dutta, Miss Universe that same year, mentored her, helped her learn the physical language of the stage, the poise, the presence. Priyanka absorbed it. She turned criticism into preparation. That's the principle sitting inside this first chapter of her life. When the world tells you that you don't belong somewhere, the answer isn't to convince them with words. It's to become so undeniable that the room has no choice but to make space. Now fast forward. She's not 18 anymore. She's in her early 20s, and she's one of the busiest young actresses in Bollywood. From the outside, it looks like she made it. She's on posters. She's shooting film after film. But this is where the hidden struggle really begins, because being wanted and being respected are not the same thing. Priyanka has spoken about a moment early in her acting career, around 2002 or 2003, that she's called dehumanizing. She was playing an undercover character in a film, a scene that required her to remove pieces of clothing, one at a time. She wanted to layer the wardrobe, to have some control over how the scene was shot. The director didn't say, what he wanted to her directly. He turned to the stylist in front of her and said he needed to see her underwear, because otherwise, why would anyone come watch the movie? Sit with that for a second. She was in the room, and he spoke about her body like she wasn't. This is the part of the industry nobody puts in the trailer. The pressure to be looked at more than heard. The moments where a young woman has to decide in real time whether to say something or swallow it and keep working. Because the work is the only thing that's ever going to change how people see her. That's the invisible tax on ambition that almost nobody talks about honestly. It's not just long hours or hard auditions. Sometimes it's your own dignity, being tested in rooms where you have the least power. And yet, this is where the turning point starts to take shape, quietly, over years, not overnight. Priyanka kept choosing roles that demanded to be taken seriously as an actress, not just looked at. In 2004, she won the Filmfare Award for Best Performance in a negative role for Aitraz, playing a character with real edge, real complexity. Then in 2008 came Fashion, where she played a supermodel, navigating the industry's darker undercurrents. Ambition, addiction, exploitation, the exact themes that had shaped her own early years in the business. That performance won her the National Film Award for Best Actress, one of the highest honors in Indian cinema. Think about that for a moment. The industry that once reduced her to a wardrobe conversation eventually had to hand her its highest acting honor. The principle here is simple, but it's easy to forget when you're in the middle of being underestimated. Don't let the way people treat you define what you build. Let what you build define how they eventually have to treat you. Priyanka didn't win that respect by demanding it. She won it role by role, film by film, refusing to disappear into the version of her that other people found easiest to categorize. But just when it looks like the story is settling into a comfortable rhythm. Successful Bollywood actress, awards on the shelf, career secure. She does something that stuns almost everyone around her. She agrees to play world champion boxer Mary Kom, a 5-time world amateur boxing champion from Manipur, a woman who fought her way to the top of a sport that barely had space for female athletes, let alone Indian women from a small northeastern state most of the country barely thought about. To prepare, Priyanka trained physically in ways she never had before. She's talked about how demanding it was. Getting hit, taking real physical punishment, learning to move and hold herself like an actual boxer, not perform the idea of one. This wasn't safe. A major female star, at the height of her bankability, choosing to put her face and her body through boxing training instead of another glossy leading role. That's a risk most people at her level simply don't take because there's nothing forcing them to. And here's the setback nobody frames properly. Playing a real person, a living icon, in her own country is enormous pressure. If you get it wrong, it's not just a bad review. It's a betrayal of someone real, someone Indians already loved. Priyanka carried that weight through every take. The film became one of the defining performances of her career. Mary Kom herself has spoken warmly about the portrayal. And what Priyanka proved, without saying a single word about it directly, is that comfort is the enemy of growth. She didn't need to make that film. She chose to, because staying in the lane the industry had built for her. The glamorous roles, the safe box office bets, would have meant never finding out what she was actually capable of. That's the second principle worth taking with you. Success doesn't ask you to keep doing what already works. It asks you, eventually, to risk what already works, for the sake of what you haven't proven yet, to anyone, including yourself. Now here's where the story takes its biggest turn. Because at the peak of her Bollywood career, one of the highest paid, most recognizable actresses in India. Priyanka made a decision that looked, to a lot of people, like career suicide. She started stepping away, not because Bollywood had rejected her. The opposite. She'd already conquered it. But she said, in her own words, that she started feeling limited. She's a competitive person by nature, and comfort, even successful, celebrated comfort, started to feel like a ceiling. So she began pursuing something almost nobody in her position had done before, at that scale. A genuine crossover into the American entertainment industry, on her own terms. It did not go smoothly. Not even close. She tried music first. She released singles, including Exotic with Pitbull, which found some commercial traction, and she pursued a pop career seriously. But she's been candid, looking back, that it didn't come from an authentic place, that it felt manufactured, and audiences and critics could feel that too. The music career didn't become the foundation she hoped it would be. Then she pursued acting in America. And this is the part that should hit hard for anyone who's ever tried to start over in a new industry, a new city, a new version of themselves. She said plainly that people didn't want to take meetings with her, not because she lacked talent or fame, because she was seen as a Bollywood actor, and Hollywood executives assumed that meant she couldn't carry an American mainstream film. All of the success she'd built in India, the awards, the box office records, the decade of work, meant almost nothing walking into rooms in Los Angeles. She was starting over. Completely, imagine that. Being one of the biggest stars in a country of over 1 billion people, and being treated, in a new industry, like a complete unknown, who has to prove she belongs from zero. This is the moment in almost every meaningful success story where the person could have quietly gone home to what already worked. Nobody would have blamed her. She had nothing left to prove in Bollywood, but she stayed in the discomfort. She kept showing up to rooms that didn't want her in them yet. And then came the turning point that changed everything. In 2015, she signed on to play Alex Parrish in ABC's Quantico, becoming the first South Asian actor in history to lead a primetime network drama in the United States. Before she took the role, she told the network directly what she needed. She wanted a character that was ethnically ambiguous, someone whose story wasn't reduced to stereotype, someone the audience would judge by performance, not by preconceived ideas about where she came from. That request shaped how she was cast. The show became a genuine milestone. Critics called it groundbreaking for its diverse casting. And for the first time, American audiences watched a South Asian woman carry the lead of a network drama, week after week, season after season. But even this breakthrough came with real struggle. The show faced criticism for her character's Americanized name and accent, for storylines that stumbled into stereotype territory, including one particularly controversial episode that led ABC and Priyanka to issue a public apology. Even at the center of a genuine milestone, she was navigating the tension of representing an entire community's hopes while working inside a system that didn't always get it right. She stayed anyway. She used the platform to keep pushing for better representation, not just for herself, but for the actors who'd come after her. And here's the principle from this chapter, maybe the most important one in the entire story. Starting over doesn't erase what you built before. It just means you have to prove it again, in a new room, to people who haven't seen your history yet. That's not injustice. That's just the price of growth. The people who make it aren't the ones who avoid starting over. They're the ones willing to do it more than once. From there, the doors kept opening. Not easily, but they opened. Baywatch in 2017 marked her Hollywood film debut. Roles in Isn't It Romantic, The Matrix Resurrections, Citadel. A Grammy nomination shelf event she co-hosted. A memoir unfinished, where she wrote candidly about identity, colorism, and the industry pressures she'd faced. She built her own production company, Purple Pebble Pictures, so she could start creating opportunities for other storytellers instead of only waiting for someone to hand her one. And she's spent years as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, using her platform for children's rights and education. Work she's continued quietly, alongside every film and every headline. None of that happened because doubt disappeared. It happened because she kept working through it, chapter after chapter, industry after industry, doubt after doubt. So here's what her journey actually proves. And it has nothing to do with whether you'll ever win a pageant, or headline a network drama, or star opposite Hollywood A-listers. It's this. Every single stage of growth in her life came with a version of rejection that would have justified quitting. The hometown that turned her away right after her biggest win. The director who spoke about her like she wasn't in the room. The industry that made her prove herself twice. Once in Bollywood, and then all over again in Hollywood, from zero. At every single one of those points, there was a reasonable, easy exit. Nobody would have blamed her for taking it. She didn't take it. Not because she wasn't afraid. Not because the doubt wasn't real. But because she understood something that's easy to forget when you're in the middle of your own hard chapter. The version of you that gets rejected today is not the final version of you. It's just the version that hasn't finished becoming yet. That's the price of success nobody talks about. It's not glamorous. It's not a montage. It's rooms that don't want you in them. It's starting over when you've already proven yourself once. It's staying quietly through moments that would make most people walk away. And on the other side of all of that is a life built on your own terms, not the terms anyone else tried to hand you. So here's what I want you to take from this. Right now, today. You don't need a pageant crown or a Hollywood contract to have your own version of this story. You already have a room somewhere that hasn't made space for you yet. You already have a no sitting in your history that you could let define you. Or you could let it become the reason you got sharper, more prepared, more undeniable. Whatever that goal is for you, the one you haven't said out loud yet, the one that feels too big, too far, too risky. I want you to do something small right now. Just one word. Comment it below. One single word that captures what you're chasing. Career, freedom, family, confidence, whatever it is for you. Type it. Let it be real. Let it exist outside your own head for a second. And if this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you that the price of a real success is always paid quietly, long before anyone's watching, then subscribe and come be part of the Golden Grace family. This is where we tell the stories behind the highlight reel. The real ones, the human ones. Because I truly believe your own golden chapter is closer than you think. You just have to be willing to pay the price nobody talks about. I'll see you in the next one.